Guys, hope you had a good weekend. A couple of things we're going to jump into today, and just they're not letting it go. I don't think that Trump understands, and that the people out there in the establishment MAGA world get that this whole "there's nothing to see here" thing isn't going anywhere. It isn't with Epstein. It just isn't. And this weekend, I watched a lot of stuff, the Turning Point stuff, and great debate with Dave Smith and Hammer, and that was a good debate. But watching a lot of people ask questions about, is this important to you, and seeing a bunch of young people saying, yes, it is important. This is important. This isn't going anywhere. I know you can pretend that it will. You can say, hey, this is going to eventually die down, and it may die down. The problem is, as it dies down, the people who are younger, who supported this in a major way, who grew up in a podcast world, who grew up on sitting there listening to people talk about stuff, Bongino's and the Cash Patels and many of them for quite a long time. Those people, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go away with it. They're going to say, all right, if there's nothing to see here, then I guess it's time for me to go as well, because you gaslit me and I don't want any part of that. And I don't think that a certain group of people inside the MAGA world understand that is what is going to happen. If you're not going to throw out the truth, if you're not going to give the truth, if you're not going to come out with something and you're not going to be honest about it, let me tell you what's going to happen. Those people, they'll stop screaming for it because they're not going to pay attention anymore. They're going to go away. They're going to say, you just needed my vote. You're no different than the last group of people. And I don't think people out there in MAGA land understand that. I just don't. Dave Smith this weekend was there. And again, he was a debate about Israel. And, first of all, we're going to get into that in a second. But the insanity of people going after Charlie Kirk because they allowed Dave Smith to come on stage and debate Israel and Gaza and all of this stuff. What are you doing after Charlie Kirk, for God's sakes? The beauty of our country is there is freedoms in our country, as he talks about. And the fact that people have gone after Charlie Kirk, how dare you platform a guy? Platform a guy what? That has a different opinion about Israel? How dare you and by the way, it's not about Israel. Let's be honest. It's about Netanyahu and this government in particular.
Hanging fruit of, you guys like Trump. This guy said bad things about Trump. Listen, guys, I'm a free American. I supported Donald Trump in this last election. Yes, he did just actively cover up a giant child rapist ring, and I'm going to criticize him for that, okay? And I'm sorry, after all these years of us right-wingers saying, protect the children, come on, that's bad for your soul if you don't. You speak up about that. It's horrible what he's doing.
I agree, 100%. And having been a child that has gone through stuff like that, the fact that they're not talking about it, the fact that they just want to say you're still talking about it, the fact that they're looking at everybody saying, how dare you even bring this up at a time of greatness and blah, 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 is bullshit. And I think we recognize that. The other side of it, going after him because he's got a differing opinion about Israel, is the most asinine thing on the planet. And both immigration and Israel, there is an issue here that needs to be dealt with. Israel is going to talk themselves out of a younger generation who's going to want to have nothing to do with Israel because of the way that they're pushing and the way that they're acting and the way that they feel, and again, this has nothing to do with the Israeli people. The frustration that they have with the power they have amongst our government and the push that they have amongst our government in particular. And the fact that they've gone after Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk had the audacity to let Dave Smith come on stage and have a debate, for God's sakes, is the most asinine thing on the planet. That you would go after him. But you watch what happens. The polls are starting to change. And if you don't think that's true, you're fooling yourself. So I'm going to go over just some numbers right here. And these are polls from the last few months, all right, going back to March all the way up through the end of June. Support for Israel has never been lower. Polls support of Israel, record low. That's the Times of Israel. American Republicans increasingly complicated relationship with Israel. Sympathy for Israel drops among Republicans. and Democrats and independents. American sympathy for Israel reaches all-time low. Americans grow more divided on U.S. support for Israel. U.S. and Israel-Hamas war, trouble in the polls. Less than half of U.S. now sympathetic towards Israel. Why is that? The push. We are a reactionary society, and so we'll go from one extreme to another. But I think what they're seeing is there is a push and a sense of control and a sense of want that is coming from the government, not the people, not the country, but this particular government. And that push is strong, and they recognize that. And, you know, Trump has been extremely supportive of Israel. You may never find anybody as supportive as Trump, but the reality is there are a lot of questions that need to be asked about what is happening over there and what is happening with Gaza and what is happening in that horrific, absolute, just heart-wrenching horrors that are taking place there. I'll be honest with you. As somebody who supports Israel, I look at this and I think to myself, it's a tough watch. It's an absolute tough watch. And if you think you can sit there and just watch that and be like, well, you know what? It's Hamas's fault. There's a lot of games being played. It's good to have a foil, right? Like Batman, he liked to catch Joker, but he didn't always want it. He's like, here, I caught him. Here, you guys take him now. Do whatever you want with him. Don't let him escape. There was a certain sense amongst what was happening in Israel, amongst the people that in the powers that be that run it, then liked a little bit of the foil because, you know what? Hey, keeps us all in power. You can ask certain questions. This is not about the people of Israel, who, by the way, aren't thrilled by a lot of what's going on. There are a lot of issues going on, and the powers that be may be pushing something, but a younger generation, people that were there at Turning Point, they have serious questions about the amount of money going to Israel, the amount of power they seem to have over our government, the amount of lobbying power, the fact that, yes, Turning Point USA, there were people that went after Charlie Kirk who are absolutely no involvement in America outside of lobbying in America, telling Charlie Kirk how to run his Turning Point USA and what to do. That is the kind of insanity and push that has gone on. And trust me, I get it all the time. I'll say something critical of this group of people that are running Israel right now with no end in sight of a lot of this stuff. And I have serious questions. And what do I get? How horrible I am, how much I hate Jews, all of the usual stuff that they throw out there. No, wrong. I'm a human. I see what's going on. I don't see an end in sight other than you're not going to bomb people to the point of no return and think that you're going to win their future support. That isn't going to happen. There needs to be a change. There's no doubt Hamas is a bad, bad, bad thing. That being said, we're sitting here as if it's no big deal. Right? You know what? Hamas, you know, these people die over here, but the reality is it's Hamas's fault. No, they've got to do better. We understand that. And criticizing Israel is not so much criticizing Israel, it's criticizing the powers that be right now that are lobbying here and pushing for things that, quite frankly, I don't think we should be involved with. I don't want my money going anywhere that's killing a whole bunch of people. How could you want that? Hamas is bad. It'd be great if they all wore uniforms and ran around. They can't. What's left there? Boulders. We're taking big boulders, making little boulders. We're seeing people dying in the streets. We're seeing all kinds of things that you sit there and you think as a human being, no, I do not go in for any of this. At what point in time do you stand up and say, it's time to do something different? Okay. This is done. How do we get whoever's still alive? Because again, we don't know any of those numbers. How do we get those people back over? And how do we set a course for some success and some real peace in an area where people have a chance? Because if you think this is it, it isn't. And when you get people who come out and they will go and attack you, how dare you even say anything like that? No, sorry, I'm not going to sit here with a blind eye and go, this is fine. After, October 7th happened, every right to defend yourself, every right. I was behind it 110%. But at some point in time, what's going on? And the powers that be over there and over here, people who enrich themselves onto this, it is frustrating. And we're seeing a new generation of Hamas and future terrorists or freedom fighters, depending on what side of the fence you're on, being born because their uncle, their father, their grandfather, their mother, their sister are all dead. What do you think is going to happen? There's got to be a better way. This ain't it. This ain't it. And that's the beauty of Trump. Trump understands that. He's like, look, it'd be great if you guys had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath mortgage to worry about. You're less apt to blow your ass up. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah. Well, how do we get to that point? That's a great question, and a question needs to be asked. And it shouldn't be a situation where if you dare bring up what is happening over there as a human being and say to yourself, I have some real troubles with this, that somewhere along the line you should get blown out by people who are like, you're the worst person in the world. You hate the Jews. You're anti-Semitic. How dare you? That's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And when I was talking about Israel here and how things are changing, I bring this up. Same thing goes with immigration. Immigration numbers right now are crazy. First of all, the border shut down. We get that. But how the sausage is made matters. It does. And I say that because we all want a hot dog, right? A hamburger, something like that. Sausage is made. How's it made? I don't know how it's made. I don't want to know how it's made. I know it tastes great, but I don't need to know how it's made. And that's what's happening. We're seeing in real time all of these things when it comes to these raids. All of these things where we were told it was going to be the worst first. Everybody's got it in their mind where, yeah, we want deportation to take place, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it happen. I know it's going to happen, and it's the worst first. We want that quintessential go to central casting, and it's the dude with tats everywhere, and he's throwing up all the gang signs, and he's doing the stuff, and he's easily recognizable. What we don't want is the lady down the street. What we don't want is the little guy over here who, he's got a son that was born here and he was mowing the lawns and he was making his living that way and he's been here for, 16 years. We don't want that. We don't. The average person. Now, you're going to get the people out there. When I was doing my show today, people text me, I want every goddamn one of them gone. Okay, settle down there. But I'm talking about from the average person's perspective. There is a certain sense of, okay, look, this is kind of, if we're going to go, we want the mean guy. We don't want the little lady down the street, right? Who makes our tamales at Christmas. That's not what we're looking for. Right. So we want a certain look, a certain way. And some of these people are always going to get caught up in it. Part of this goes to the fact that these insane cities and states have decided that they're going to do everything they can to protect everybody they can, regardless of how good or bad they are. And in doing so, you're going to have to change your tactics and you're going to have to go to workplaces. And you're going to get people. I mean, the fact that Democrats are coming out at all and saying, how dare the Trump administration go after that marijuana farm last week? There were kids on the marijuana farm. Do you guys not give a shit about that? There are kids working at a marijuana farm. And everybody's like, well, the way they did it was bad. No, it's ridiculous. But we live in a reactionary society where emotions are so strong and they will go from one to another. And the reality is most of us live here. We want that common sense kind of, hey, what's the reality of what we can do? It's not going to make everybody happy, but 85% of us are going to be like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's where most of us live. We're the exhausted majority. Well, this time last year, people realized, immigration's out of fucking control. We got to figure something out. We got to figure this out. So how about this? Concerns about immigration, they've abated, as they say. And this is the Gallup poll. So the new Gallup poll is 30% of Americans want immigration decreased. That's down from 55% last year. A record high, though, 79%. Consider immigration good for the country. Support for the border wall and mass deportations is down. Fewer Americans want mass deportations after climbing so last year up to 55%. This is what's crazy. Mass deportations have absolutely fallen, which you're like, oh my God, to the point of about 30%. People are frustrated with the entire system. I think we're all frustrated with it. The reality of seeing the sausage made, seeing the video, seeing all of those things, both sides have to understand that, look, we can't have the entire world come here. It's just not possible. And it's not about, I was watching Leguizamo and Bill Maher talk about it earlier. The reality is we don't have the resources. We don't. We're in debt up to our ass. We do not have the resources. It's not about land, because Leguizamo's like, we got a lot of space. It's not about that. It's about having the resources. The other side of it is, it's also a culture thing. The reason you want to come to America is because of America. And we need people who want to come here, want to be American. And that needs to be talked about a lot more than just give us anybody. We don't care whether they want to be American or not. We can't have that. That doesn't work. So there's a lot that goes into all of this stuff when it comes to immigration. But what you're seeing now is, as people see the results and the mass deportations, they're uncomfortable with it. You'll get those people like, I voted exactly for this. But you get a lot of people go, well, hold on here. I wanted some mass deportation, but you didn't tell me the worst first. And Trump's teased a little bit like, hold on. Well, maybe we'll do this, and maybe this group can stay. Maybe this group. The problem with Trump is you now have a purity test. And that purity test is, if you dare say anything that goes against the base, they're not happy with it. And he's teased on a few occasions some of the things out there about maybe hotel workers and maybe farm workers and maybe this staff and that staff. That's not worked out well, because there's a certain test, and he's had to walk it back. So there's a lot of frustrating things going on, but watch what happens. We're now going to have the ricochet from everybody was like, let's do mass deportations. Let's get people out of here. Let's throw everybody out of here, to hold on a second. We meant everybody. We meant like the worst, the bad people, the people that were unfettered, had access, this person. We meant those. We weren't talking about like the person down the street who we know, right? Like she watched our kids for a couple of years. That's what's happening. And what you're going to see, much like with Israel and the push and the way that they've gone about things, and I understand that they feel that they've got to do that, you start to see a turn, especially amongst a young group of people who find so much of this stuff bullshit. They don't buy into it anymore. They're more open to listening to all sides. They're not sold for Israel or for immigrants the way that maybe an older generation was. And when I hear an older generation go, well, you guys just don't get it, they're stupid. You don't understand. That's the future. And there's a lot more of them. And they're not going to give the Epstein thing up. They're not going to just blindly go, well, you know what, just do whatever you want in Gaza, blow it up, we don't care. And they're not going to sit here and say, throw everybody out immigration-wise. They're a lot more libertarian than people realize. And we kind of consider ourselves a little bit conservatarian in this world. More of that exhausted majority that many of you are, who are sick and tired of the bullshit and you just want to cut through it. Follow along across all my social media. That's all I got for you tonight. Oh, one more quick thing. This was hilarious. Speaking of that, yesterday, Trump went to the World Club Soccer Championship. This is one of many. This is Cole Palmer. He was the star of the game. 2 goals. Chelsea won 3-0. But they asked him afterwards, and if you didn't see it, so the World Cup's going to be here a year from now, and the World Cup's massive. It's the biggest sporting event on the planet. But this was hilarious. So normally when you go to give out the trophy. So you go give out the trophy. You hand it to the team, and then you kind of move off to the side, and then they celebrate. Not Trump.
I knew he was going to be here, but I didn't know he was going to be on the stand when we left the trophy, so I was a bit confused, yeah.
This is so Trump. He was like, I'm going to, they're like, are you going to go? He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I like it. I'm staying with you guys. I'm pretty excited. Let's celebrate. And that's classic Trump right there. I love that. That was funny. He's excited about the World Cup. He's excited about the Olympics. He's excited about all the stuff. And I thought that was the perfect example of Trump, because even the captain who was standing next to him thought, I thought he was going to leave, but he's like, no, not going anywhere. There you go. Perfect example of what Trump's all about. You guys have a blessed night. We'll do it again tomorrow. Catch my radio program, which is 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on the Pacific side, 9 to noon on the East Coast side. You can also grab our podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, like and subscribe. We appreciate it when you guys do. Be good to each other. And let's talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. And anything you guys have to say, any suggestions, be sure to check out our website, chadbensonshow.com, and shoot us an email, a text, whatever it is.